So now let's talk about securities lawyers again. Now, really, you don't totally need a securities lawyer if you're doing something called crowdfunding, which is basically capitalism light. It was I'd mentioned earlier in the first video in the sequence or early video that one of the reasons people hate capitalism is because free speech in the area of capitalism was stripped from the American public in the 30s. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why the United States is so lopsided in terms of the economy. A handful of really wealthy people, and half the country can't even, they couldn't go a week without a paycheck. So one second. So in the US and all around the world, there was a movement to restore some freedom of speech in the area of capitalism. And that's been a big change, but these are power tools and most people don't really know how to handle them. And so whether they're the investors or the entrepreneurs, basically almost all those deals just go bust. But I'm glad the laws are there. And if you're working with me, then you won't be, the 99% of people that just fail and lose all their investors' money. And you can really take advantage of that platform if you need to. And so in those cases, you don't necessarily need a lawyer. But really, again, the problem with those things is now you've got a third party holding your money, and there's a lot of fraud, or those businesses sometimes they go under and they take all of the money they're holding in escrow, and it's not, you don't necessarily need to do that. I mean, a typical $500,000 raise is 10 people. If you're in a westernized country or the westernized part of a developing country, you just don't need to, you don't need to take these extreme risks in the beginning. And there's a lot of, complexity to these public offers when you get right down to it. So let's assume and again, you'll know because in the earlier video, we talked about designing the investment product and the marketing strategy. So we'll know soon enough before you ever try to recruit a lawyer. So what you do is you're going to look for a securities lawyer and you want to talk to several of them. But what you're going to do is you're going to ask them to set up an escrow account for you and say, look, here's the design of the investment product. You'll have a little term sheet, a few sentences on a sheet of paper. And you say, I'm going to raise money. I want to raise, $500,000 and I want to put that in your escrow account. And remember, individual securities attorneys, you want to check this. You want to make sure they've got their malpractice insurance, because if they steal your escrow account, you want to be able to get it back through their insurance. So that's the two things you're going to do. You're going to ask that person, say, look, I'm not going to ask you to do anything until I've raised the whole round into escrow. And then I want you to do the actual securities offer. And I want you to do that and get paid out of the close. And if they say no to that, just move on to somebody else. Because if let's say you can pay a lot of money for these securities docs, and you also want to kind of get the price that you're going to take out of the offer, because you're going to tell your investors that they are going to be paying the cost of the securities lawyer. So you're having these conversations with the securities lawyer. And will they set up the escrow account for you? Will they pay their fees out of escrow? And what's it going to cost? I mean, at this kind of level, you're not going to have a big fancy deal. It's going to be very straightforward. And you'll have designed something called your capitalization table. We're going to talk about that in another video in this sequence. So why does that matter? Because in the last video, we talked about you're having these conversations and somebody says, well, can I be involved? And now instead of just saying, give me your name and the amount, now you can say, well, sure, here's the terms, and you can deposit that check with our securities attorney. And I'm not going to take any money. We're not going to ask for any money until we've raised the full amount we need to succeed in our current set of milestones. And then also at that point, if you change your mind and you don't want to sign the docs, you'll get your money back. And it's all handled by the lawyer. It's not going into my bank account. I can't steal it from you go run off to Tahiti with your $10,000 and disappear. And so all these are integrity, trust building. These things exist because there are all kinds of ways. When you look in the world and all these big deals are done, they're done safely. It's not that, in real business, it's not that easy for people to steal the money and walk away or mishandle it. There are all these kind of checks and balances that sort of reinforce the idea of integrity. And integrity is this another kind of aspect of the art. But that's why I teach people how to have integrity with money, how to get paid to be a fundraiser. And in fact, if you want, you can also, if people say, can we really, I'd love to support you. You could say, well, you can join my investor, my syndicate, my investor club. And if you do it with the software I've developed, the Make My Nut software, you can charge them a recurring monthly fee to be a member of your syndicate or your club. And there are recurring revenue things, but what I found is that I don't like them because they make you fix a price. And I found that people in my own syndicate have been willing to write or pay so far from $1 a month up to $200 a month just for the pleasure of supporting me in my leadership. And so if you try to kind of say, well, everyone's going to pay $100 or, I like my app, but you can use anything you want. It's not that critical. In fact, you might say, yeah, well, if you want to be in the club, that's going to be $100 a month. You get 100 people in that club. Now you got $10,000 a month in income just for your own salary to go around being a leader. So that's how you handle, you're getting ready to receive money as soon as possible, whether that's supporting you as a leader or going right into escrow if your salary is handled, or both. Okay, I think that's a good wrap up for this. Be sure to ask any questions below or book a meeting with me, 15-minute discovery meeting with the link below, in the show notes. And let's talk about working together.